Overwatch League is dead. It's had its strifes. It's had its turmoil. It was a very bold endeavor with bold claims from the get. We're here to talk about the next evolution, the next step.
This is the way League was like back in the day, you know, like a lot of this is the way Pokemon is. Like show up for the tournament after you register and get championship points.
One of the big criticisms of Faceit is that it is funded by the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, which means it's the Saudi Arabia government. Brings us to the time when we get to talk about our main topic this episode. We are bringing you information about the Overwatch World Championship Series. This is not Overwatch World, it's Overwatch Championship Series. OWCS, yeah. As you know, Overwatch League is dead. It's had its strifes. It's had its turmoil over the past 6 seasons. It was the first esports league to franchise as a whole, bringing individual teams to cities where normally they're based through team complexes or friends getting together, hanging out in team houses, etc. It was a very bold endeavor with bold claims from the get. And a lot of criticisms for that. But in a lot of ways, people saw it as potentially being the next level for esports. As we've seen, it's ultimately failed for a lot of reasons. And that could be a whole conversation in and of itself. And like, I'm not here. I like the Overwatch League. It had its flaws, and those flaws I wish were corrected properly. But we're here to talk about the next evolution, the next step in the Overwatch esports scene, the Overwatch Championship Series. To kind of get us started, they launched about 2 weeks ago. They changed all of their Twitter, their branding from Overwatch League, all those accounts into Overwatch Esports, kind of ominously one day, and people were kind of like, "What's going on?" They knew something was going to happen because Overwatch is too big to like not. But then from there, they were able to announce with Zoe, as well as a few of the developers and the production leaders, what they expect for this and what the future of Overwatch esports will look like, specifically the Overwatch Championship Series. It's a little bit frustrating to see them announce this series and then lay off a lot of the people that they had hired for OWL. But in that way, I think it's a bit understandable because it might be like looking to go outsourcing contracts, outsourcing and freelancing rather than in-house personnel like Zoe.
True. I mean, with all these layoffs, like, you know, grain of salt for all the stuff. We don't know a bunch of the stuff going on, but they got acquired by Microsoft. Like Phil Spencer can easily just go like, "Listen, you guys are great, but like I got my team, I got my guys, and I'm just bringing my guys in. Like that's it. Like I'm just bringing my people in, and I'm making sure that we get, you know, things done the way that I want it to be done because, you know, he is the boss." So
that happens a lot with mergers and stuff. I don't know if this was totally that, because in that same sense with Overwatch League changing, like they changed the brand. They did everything differently. So like the teams all voted to opt out of the league. So the league doesn't exist. So the league can't really have employees. So it makes sense to then also change it. So you've got those two big factors, which I think equally pushed it. The merger, Microsoft wanted to do their own way, maybe asking for things to be done and telling them do it a different way, or, you know, we'll do it for you kind of thing. And then also the fact that like literally the league didn't work the way it worked. They had contracts with people in those forms, so they need to change it. Doesn't mean we won't see these people, but it's definitely an interesting sort of way it developed. But I'm super excited about this. And Nick, how familiar are you with the Overwatch League? How familiar are you with the new sort of series of things?
So I've only read up a little bit on some of the changes that they've done. None of the like patches or anything like that. I have not really been watching Overwatch really deeply for quite a while. Like probably since Echo came out. Echo is probably the last champion that I saw like actually released.
That was a long time ago, my dude. But you know, there's been a lot that's been going on. I've been a fan of it. I've gone to a few of the finals. And it's been enjoyable to see, even as the Overwatch League, like I said. And I'm excited to see what the Overwatch Esports program, the Championship Series, has to offer. The name branding, though, is a bit similar to League. Do you think they bit off of that too much, or what?
I mean, like, from what I've seen, like, not really. Like, it's like the champion, like, it's called like what, the Championship League for League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
So they call it the LCS, but like each region has like its own different thing. You know what I mean? There's the LCK, the LEC, the LCK, like LCS and stuff like that. LCS is just like, it's the North America Championship Series, like the NA-LCS. But there's no LCS like anywhere else right now.
True.
So
that's a good point. I didn't totally realize. I thought it was just the LCS there. So I thought them doing Overwatch OWCS was a bit of a thing. But anyway, let's get into explaining this a bit more, because it's going to take some interesting bullet points from a lot of other competitive league setups, competitive tournament setups, etc. And this was definitely a brainchild of Matt, Mr. X. He led away of a lot of this competitive stuff, and then was let go in that whole thing. So like, it'll be interesting to see how this then develops after they built it, and then have basically changed entire personnels behind it and who's running it. And we'll talk a little bit about who's running it in a bit. So first and foremost, the Overwatch League, Overwatch Championship Series is going to be run into 4 different stages, and it's going to have 3 different regions, and it's going to be open to anybody, which is kind of cool. They've already done a competitive tournament, but like, I think qualifiers start soon. It might have already started.
Like the entry was on Groundhog Day. It's February 2nd.
I think so.
For Overwatch was the open, the entry for the open.
Yes.
To register for that. So like, I mean, yeah, it's like anybody. It's this is the way League was like back in the day. You know, like a lot of this is the way Pokemon is. Like Pokemon competitive scene is literally like show up for the tournament after you register and get championship points. And one of the cool things that they had was, you know, if you get a certain amount of championship points by the end of the season, when you go into like Worlds, you get first round bye. So like if you hit a certain number of points, that does actually go away this year, but you know, not to like really put that in people's heads, but that's like a really interesting thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah,
you know, depending on how many points you get.
And as we've seen in traditional sports, the NFL playoffs just happened, and we saw how much that impacts standings and players' mentality and momentum for and against both ways. So it's definitely cool to see that anybody can join, and then that those stipulations have people to fight until the very end to get those, to make it happen, to like get into the tournament. So just breaking it down a little bit, there's going to be 3 regions. We're going to be starting with the North America region, as well as the EMEA, the Europe, Middle East, and North Africa region, and then Asia. Asia's actually started their qualifiers a little bit early because they have a bigger sort of section they have to cover. I'll see the map in just a minute. But I believe North America and EMEA is starting, like you said, February 2nd, this past week. Going forward, it's going to be broken down into 4 stages. They're going to have the round robin Swiss stage where everybody's competing. I believe most of this is going to be happening online through Faceit, the esports engine Faceit, as well as something else. Is that something that like Pokemon generally did, or League used to do? I would imagine League has to be online. They're not going to have LAN tournaments and LAN qualifiers for this stuff.
So I mean, like one of the ones that I use right now for Magic is called like melee.gg.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's like a similar type thing. It's just a place where you can organize and stuff like that.
True, but I think that was a third party, like a really heavy third party site. It wasn't incorporated by Nintendo because Nintendo didn't really have a stake in the esports scene up until the end of last year, when they cease and desisted like everybody.
Yeah. So I mean, it is interesting that it's like an official partnership with Faceit. Like how many other games are actually going to be pulled into the same umbrella of like Faceit, right? and how that is gonna like has the potential to become like almost like a competitive esports social media platform if they do it right? Because everybody's gonna have to go there in order to play their tournaments and stuff like that and communicate and everything. So who knows?
Well, yeah, I believe Facet's already had a platform where they run these tournaments for different games, and I think Overwatch, Activision Blizzard, Microsoft is now buying into it. At least the Overwatch, the esports scene is buying into it to run these online Swiss round qualifier. Excuse me.
I mean, by proxy, that does mean that, you know, like that Microsoft is buying into it a little bit, right? Which could be interesting if it, like, one of the things that they hinted at with this change was that there's potential for not just pro players to play in organized tournaments on Faceit, right? Where they can you could be bronze, gold, silver, it doesn't really matter. And there could be a tournament for you. And like, this could be, and again, like Xbox is probably the most social of the actual consoles, just in general, the way that they like to pivot their consoles. So it'd be super interesting if they were to make this like more of a, like every one of their games that they have on there that they want to support Faceit with, they can have a nice little tournament outlook, because that's really what keeps players like competitive and interested in a lot of these things. It also probably keeps them less toxic, but that's a different story.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other beast. And we can kind of touch on that too, because this new change for the Overwatch esports scene does go into it. But I wanted to focus on Faceit a little bit longer because, yeah, they already broadcast CSGO. They already broadcast Apex Legends. You can hold gold, plat, bronze, iron tournaments for anybody and any space. So it really gets anybody involved as long as they're looking to scratch that competitive itch, which is cool. I did think that was a pretty awesome idea and option for stuff. Like this is everything that's going on right now that we could watch, which it's pretty lively. This is all Apex. It's pretty lively. Going into playing, these are the games on their roster for that. And like Overwatch 2 is the newest kid on the street, newest kid on the block here for this. But everything for all the way to Clash Royale mobile games, that's pretty in depth.
Yeah, you got a bunch of bangers on there, right? And some mobile games. That's pretty interesting. I have no clue what skill SF2 is.
It kind of looks like a Call of Duty clone, but no tournaments, so maybe it's new. Maybe they're just prepping. Either way, like, do you feel like this is something that they would be able to garner new individuals participating, get new people watching, or is Twitch going to maintain like the bastion, the stronghold of watching esports and video games?
You haven't seen the calculator for Twitch and how much money it costs Twitch to actually like per viewer?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the reason why they hate Asmongold, because like he probably cost them when he streams on his secondary channel, he cost them like $3 million just streaming. And they just allow him to do it, and it just costs $3 million to do it. And that's it. But like, you know, back to Faceit, it's super easy for the ways that they can actually do some stuff.
Yeah.
And like one of them would just be like, sorry, I got distracted.
Go ahead.
Would just be streamers. Like, so if you get Ludwig in here doing a tournament for Fall Guys. Fall Guys isn't on there, but like Ludwig, Fall Guys doing a tournament, giving away money. Kai Senate just doing, and like any one of these guys doing tournaments and being the tournament organizers on this platform has the potential to pull in any range of skill groups. You know what I mean? Like any single one. And you could have some really, really fun, cool interactions. And then, you know, that's everybody wants to, like, look what happened in New York City. Like everybody wants to be Kai. Like, come on. You know, like that. He can pull a bunch of people in. So I think that's like not missed opportunities, but we're just waiting for the opportunities to present themselves when it comes to like streamers.
True. That's a fair point. the marketing on the stuff needs to just be able to follow, and like there has to be a reason, which is, you know, usually money. Otherwise, I think with that, it's there is that ease of access. But like, have you seen the Ludwig stuff for his chess boxing? He's not unfamiliar with holding his own tournaments, his community tournaments. But overall, have you seen the chess boxing that he's run?
Actually kind of funny.
A little bit of technical difficulties, but as you hold on, I'm going to bring us over into Face It a bit more and kind of talk about Face It's history here. One of the big criticisms of Face It is that it is funded by the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, which means it's the Saudi Arabia government. There's been a lot of Saudi money pouring into the esports scene this past couple of years. Teams in leagues over in Europe, teams in leagues in the Middle East. There's been a lot of criticisms about this, and it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because having that sort of investment and that money is good, but then the cost of it is obviously, then you're sort of upholding like a human rights thing. So I did see something that was kind of interesting. Some people suggest that, you know, it's not, especially when the livelihoods of these players and coaches and teams rely on this money to like make a living. There's this sense of like, well, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I did see some things that were kind of interesting where it's like, don't just protest and remove yourself from the system. Be a part of the system, but advocate the change. And part of advocating the change is taking some of the money, maybe whatever you can afford, and then donating it to human rights charities, etc. And I thought that was a very clever, sort of interesting way to not combat, but like not even mitigate, but just to feel like you're doing something and still hold ethics with it, because that's a big criticism of all this. The sports washing with esports in other sports of the Saudi money, the conflict of interest this provides and does. And like esports is in such a fragile state, especially financially, that they really do kind of need that backing, but at what cost? Really? How we doing, Nick? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. You're not talking. We're going to need to get you a new microphone. So yeah, that's an interesting sort of moment here to talk about Face It as the platform. It's very cool and interesting of a place to be able to hold these tournaments, for streamers to get involved and to hold these tournaments as well. But more or less, like, then we're also then challenged with this new ethical dilemma where it's combined with that situation. But moving on, Face It's going to be right. Hey, I can hear you.
Hey, there we go.
Do you have any thoughts about the Face It where it's owned by the Saudi Public Investment Fund?
They're putting their money into everything. I'd be surprised, like just because we know, like, this one's at the forefront, like, you know, someone should do a deep dive if we're gonna like talk about like how ethical it is for all that money, because who knows, like, if your favorite games are owned by a horrible company or a horrible organization or something like that. Like, not saying I don't know anything about, that. I'm just saying, if you're talking about ethics, you should probably, find out where they have their money, rather than like, this one thing is also has money from here,
Yeah.
Just figure it out where it all comes from. Because, if you don't like Tencent, right? If you don't like them, then like, you probably don't want to be partnered with like Epic Games and stuff like that, which, just find out what games they make and other things. Like how much money does the Saudi Arabian investment fund have in video games, and what video games are there?
Right. That's true. And with that, like, it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword, because the money is going to flow and people are going to chase it, and like business is going to do business. But even as a competitive esports player, it's hard to get the bag. So do what you can when it's available. but it is a bit like it's an interesting development and how this is. Face it's a great platform for ease of use and connecting and letting everybody on any level compete. And like it's a no-brainer that they would team up with them, but then that's the other dilemma. Blizzard making another big business decision, and we'll have to see how it turns out. They do know how to do their stuff. They do know how to make it happen. Only time's going to tell, and like we're going to have to see. Moving into then more so, Face it's going to be running the tournaments. This is how the tournaments are going to be run. First and foremost, the Asia region started a little bit earlier. They're going to have open qualifiers for Pacific, Japan, and Korea. I believe Pacific, not specific. Pacific also includes South America, I think I saw, or something. But, Australia, New Zealand, etc. They are doing their best to also avoid saying China, because I know Blizzard doesn't currently have connections to Chinese Tencent games, etc. Which, whole other conversation.
Yeah. Usually, yes. They're big enough for us to have 3 different episodes.
Yeah. We're going to stretch it for content.
Yeah.
So, it seems pretty straightforward. They're going to have the open qualifiers. You're getting enough points in the open qualifiers. You're going to move to the regionals. That's going to be in person in studio. And after the regionals, they're going to bring you to actual championships in a place. I believe there's 2 championships this year. There's going to be one in Texas, I think Austin, Texas, and then another in Sweden, in Europe. And it's Europe's first Overwatch LAN. I think it's Sweden. Maybe it's another one.
Germany. I thought it was Germany.
It's at DreamHack International either way. So they're going to have the regional competitions, and then they'll have the international one.
Yeah, that's May and November, right? I think one of the coolest things about all these big tournaments now is there's going to be a loser bracket.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the coolest thing, where we get to have some of the coolest stories of the timeline of this actually be somebody makes it through loser bracket and then comes back to win the whole entire tournament and make a really interesting watch just overall with something like this. So
yeah. No, that's really, sports is all about narratives. Everyone loves the underdog coming back to win kind of thing.
Or even the favorite person just getting smacked down in the first round by somebody. Mm-hmm. And just having them battle their way through, just slog through the losers bracket. That's always entertaining to see, right? Because you're on the edge of the seat the whole entire time, regardless of who it is.
Right. And that they're just going to come back and either go Super Saiyan, or they're just going to be boomed and just disappear.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an exciting stage to see it on with DreamHack. It's the first time Overwatch has done these tournaments at something like DreamHack. And yes, it's DreamHack Dallas in May, the end of May. And then the other one's going to be in Europe. It's Stockholm. DreamHack Stockholm. So that's really cool to see. I'm pretty sure North America and the EMEA regions are going to be the similar setup. The calendar is going to just work a little bit later. We saw qualifiers started. So they're signing up right now for North America and EMEA, but Asia specifically has already started their round robins and stage qualifiers. March next month is when we're going to see the qualifiers happen for Overwatch. And that's going to be, it's going to be exciting because you're going from Overwatch League caliber of super teams into these fragmented teams. And I don't think you'll have a Team Liquid in those tournaments just yet.
But wasn't Canada Canada right now? Canada's team seems pretty crazy. It has 3 world champions on it. And a person who was supposed to become the rookie of the year for last year or something along those lines. That's what I was in an article I was reading. I'm probably mistaken.
I don't remember hearing about a Team Canada, but I do have a couple of rosters I wanted to talk about that look really exciting on this point. All right. Yeah. I have to bring this over to my notes a little bit because it's buried, but so actually, yeah, Toronto Defiant is keeping an esports team. And Toronto Defiant they basically dropped all of their roster from the Overwatch League, but they've picked up Overwatch League caliber players. two of which who won the world championship or the grand finals last year. This past
Slightly know what I'm talking about. Let's go.
Yeah, you're right. Someone, RuPaul, Vega,
Yeah.
Sugar Free, and Merit. Like, that is a stacked roster, and it's going to be interesting to see how other teams can like maybe compete. Because one of the biggest rules with the OWCS is that you can only have two people who aren't from your region, that aren't born in the region.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, if everyone's from North America, they could have two people from Korea, or one person from Europe and one person from Korea, and playing in North America.
It's the way to do it, and League does it. League does that thing too.
Yeah,
it just ends up making it better.
Seems fair, and it seems like a no-brainer because that was a big criticism with Overwatch League, among other esports, where you go like field a full Korean roster, and then you have like a language barrier or like a culture barrier. And vice versa, you feel the full American roster. It has its pros and cons stylistically and character, and it could work in the meta and then instantly not work as soon as the patch goes. But yeah, the Toronto Defiant team stacked up right now, looking really good. Another really notable team is going to be from EMEA. It's going to be called We Spitfire, which is an homage to the Spitfire team, the London Spitfire, and their iconic theme song that they would play every time they'd start a match, called We Spitfire. Hottie's back, Landon's back, Sparker, and Backbone. But the only thing is they dropped Admiral, which was their Lucio player, Lucio Brig player, and they're picking up Funny Astro, who's been an infamously like the Lucio player for years. So it'd be a really cool team to watch because they've definitely loved to run the rush Rhine comps, the close. And they struggled at the beginning of the last Overwatch League season, but have pushed through. That's going to be one I'm looking for. And the last one this one I just came across today. It's going to be Team Falcons. They're playing in the Asia region, I believe. It's going to have Smurf, Hanbin, Proper, Stalker, Chio, Fielder, Surmajed. Surmajed, I think, is the only one from a different region, but like that, those are people who've won championships, multiple championships. They've been competitive every year. They've made it to Overwatch League grand finals. It's going to be interesting to see who goes up against them. And if it's just going to be one of those like, listen here, little brother, you're going to have to sit down because the men are playing kind of moments.
I mean, like that team specifically, I think is the most likely in 6 months to have a complete restructured. If Proper gets like banned or in trouble again or something like that. He seems like a League of Legends problem child where like if he gets on, like he just disagrees. Like I'm not saying this and I have not done any research, but from what I've seen in this last little like excerpt of him getting banned and then unbanned, he seems like a person who just might be a little too honest with the way that he says things.
He won Rookie of the Year. He won MVP the first year he played with at the same time as Rookie of the Year. And he was recently banned because of terms of service. Here it is. Here's his tweet saying, I got banned. I just want to play. We did see that somebody else, where is it? Let me take this off stream real quick. We did see that somebody else did translate for us. Yeah, here we go. For anybody wondering, the message says he was banned for disorderly misconduct. So likely chat toxicity. So like he was probably owning some people and like has a superiority complex and kind of just like goes off on people in the wrong points, which I've got mixed feelings about. But how do you feel about this being, a situation where like if you break terms of service, you can't compete?
I mean, it's like a little rough, right? And like, something to think about is like every one of these situations in these competitive games, they're always team games, and it comes down to personalities that do not match. I personally think you should have to take a like personality test from the company to put you into a matchmaking like queue that just like you might meet your best friends in this queue because we made you do a personality test. Like I think that's like really the way to go because it usually is 5 people playing their own game and disagreeing about how they should win. And whether or not it gets heated or anything like that, it's always the same thing. One person either knows better or one person thinks they know better, and how they go about it is like, you know, what really needs to be like talked about, and that's like, you know, disorderly conduct, or like, it could be anything.
True.
He could have literally wrote like, you know, my mom's making fresh cookies for you, and somebody thought that Blizzard made him like converted his chat or something like that. He could have got tagged for that, you know.
So Nick, we have to wrap up. We're hitting our time in the last 30 seconds. Do you feel that like a team house is essential for competitive game teams like that, like to bring the camaraderie, or to like let them explode sooner than later?
I don't think it has to be a team house, because I think you should be able to respect like everybody's living space. But I do think it's like family meals. Like, I got a kid, right? And like, I talk to him every day at dinner or something like that, right? Talk to him in the morning. I think that's where you got to like do it, is like more events together, doing stuff that is like essential, but doesn't matter. It holds no weight.
No, that's a fair point. And like having that balance, because I do feel like the camaraderie is important, but we're out of time. It's been great talking with you, Nick. I'm really excited about this Overwatch Championship Series. I know I'm going to be watching. I'll be watching the Arena World Championships this weekend. Thanks for joining me, Nick. That's been the Esports Meta. We'll see you next time.